And we will now start this after-lunch session. My name is Joana Paulino. I'm going to be presenting and moderating this part of this session. The first speaker will be George Bruseker. He is a co-chair of CIDOC CRM SIG, a share of ARM-WG. He works and conducts research in the space of semantic data management. His major interests in this area include semantic data workflows, sustainability, and the modeling of historical data. He has a PhD from the National and Cabeleira University of Ethics in philosophy, and held an experienced researcher master degree at the Foundation for Research and Technology in Alves. He has worked in both academia and industry, museums, cultural heritage, and history sectors on the generation of ontologies and their application to research data. Nowadays, he is the CEO of Takin.solutions, which is a semantic data management company working on developing sustainable semantic data procedures and products. And George will be talking to us about the interplay of infrastructure and data semantics to support the evolution of integrated scholarly scientific data. So George, you can start your presentation. You have 40 minutes.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to set a timer so I don't go over. Right, thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to start sharing my screen. We all had an excellent lunch. I'm sorry I couldn't join you for that. So the original title of the talk suggested was something like the use of semantic data for research. And the reason that I shifted the title to this rather more unwieldy title was because I thought that given the context of this workshop being hosted by Rossio and being a forum where research infrastructures are involved, that it would be really interesting to take the time to talk about the sort of intersection and non-intersection of the work that's undertaken by research infrastructures, by people doing ontology and semantics and researchers, and the ways in which they are or could be amplifying each other and pushing each other forward in the sort of common goal of creating sustainable, fair data. And so I think we all push in the same direction. Research infrastructures, for example, want to provide a stable environment to generate, store, and find research. Researchers want to do research, publish it, save it, and then adopt others' research to carry it on and further it. And ontologists want to provide reusable data constructs, sort of lingua franca that allow you to interoperate, genuinely interoperate data sets for reality-based research. So there's a lot of overlap in intention, and what I want to talk about is how to make a proposal for how we can further magnify each other's work and play to each other's strengths. But to push why we need to make further efforts on that, I want to sort of start with a state of play, sort of contrasting the kind of aims, our ideal aims in these different streams versus practical realities. So I'd argue that in an ideal world, a research infrastructure would be very happy if it received and managed data that says what it means, that was well described and easily integrated, and was an environment where a researcher could go and grab various data set outputs, easily put them together into some tooling, reorganize them, and use them for quantitative and qualitative analysis, using information somehow without borders. Ideally, researchers could range across data within their discipline, but even across disciplinary boundaries, and be able to use that data because there was provenance to it, so they could critically understand where it came from, what it meant, and how they could use it. And then when they generated research results, that would be logged back into the system with provenance, giving an even richer, ever richer and more coherent set of data. But I think that generally the reality is that research data is rather idiosyncratic. It's often formed in arcane ways that aren't documented or poorly documented, and often shaped by external factors such as system design rather than the semantic content that researchers want to document and share. If researchers do go to the trouble of finding other data sets, it takes them days, months, or even years to integrate that data set in order to be able to actually use it. And there isn't a strong culture of data sharing and reuse, even within disciplines, much less across disciplinary boundaries. Additionally, a culture of data provenance is not firmly established, and so as a result of all that, it creates long-term more of a challenge and a difficulty for research infrastructures, because each contribution to the body of knowledge is, in a way, yet another media-centric data set added to the mix of heterogeneous data to manage. Semanticists, on the other hand, are ideally involved in the study of domains of research. They work from data and data structures in order to produce a high-level analysis of the propositional content of some domain of knowledge in order to generate a machine processable and human understandable ontology, which allows you to integrate data sets. And ideally, they want to do this in a way that can be applied into real digital tooling for researchers to either express their data or query their data, both their own and together with other data sets. Something closer to reality is that researchers have not adopted semantics en masse. Ontologies remain abstract and difficult to learn and are not at all part of the standard education process in humanities and social sciences. Furthermore, although we've created these lingua francas, they are not necessarily consistently applied. And as a result, and furthermore, researchers struggle to access and use the tools necessary to adopt and make use of semantic data in the first place. So getting to our last group of people I want to talk about, researchers. Well, researchers fundamentally want to do the research, and they look to research infrastructures for a virtual and or physical context to support them, provide a stability to their research, and they might, in some cases, look to semantics to try to make their data longer lasting and more efficient, so to have an eye towards the more general communicability of their data and their sustainability. But on the closer to reality side, they're often just scrambling for money in childcare, and they are not particularly excited to engage in abstract problems not directly related to their research. So how can we bring the strengths of all of these groups and all aiming towards the same goal closer together and to be more mutually reinforcing? So to start with a more positive note, projects like Rossio, or not projects, but research infrastructures, are a demonstration of investment by society and research communities and government to finance and do the technical and theoretical work to put together the necessary pooling bodies to try to bring knowledge together. And so we already have established through institutions like Rossio this sort of positive pyramid simplification, but wherein we have research teams that are associated to institutions that bind to national or disciplinary research infrastructures, that bind to international or cross-disciplinary research infrastructures, and ideally there's a flow already created to push knowledge up and to try to delocalize knowledge about data and research and make it more broadly accessible, and therefore start reaching some of these goals that we're talking about. So what I want to propose is around how we can strengthen this process, content that researchers make. To do that, you need to know the context of their work and all the factors that shape and impinge upon it. So you need to go from the reality of research in the fields. You need to know the systems that interceded in moving the field or library research into some sort of digital format. You need to know the tools and services that interceded on that. And you need to know the institutional context in which all those things were made in order to be able to do the semantic research in the first place and then put it back into a wider pool of information. So the groundwork of my proposal is to say that what would be interesting is to have research institutes maintaining a database, a knowledge graph, that carries the metadata and the paradata that describes not only the data sets that are produced or the software produced within their purview, but all of the relevant contextual data that gives meaning to and gives us the interpretive context to use that information. So the idea is the institution has some such knowledge database. The researcher registers with that database and is then able to use it in order to identify other projects, data sets, etc., that would be of use for semantic integration in the first place. So you create this base picture of what is the case so that you can engage in the long and complicated processes that are often involved in creating semantic data. So, and you register, and if you do those processes and you say there's research database 1, 2, and 3, and you want to semantically integrate that, then you do that work and you register that as well in the knowledge base of the research infrastructure or research institute data. So if we had that base concept, if we were reinforcing that aspect of data for metadata production at the base of the pyramid of providing data up into the world, then I think we'd have a rationing mechanism to start more virtuous cycles with regards to this data. So if we have a sort of social contract where a social and institutional contract, where the researcher must register their research into this local knowledge graph, and the local institution provides the maintenance of that metadata and data, and then passes that metadata context up to the research infrastructure level, then I think we have the beginnings of a mechanism to start developing broader and deeper semantic integrations. So it kind of moves us into this picture, which you'll notice is kind of a repeat of the previous picture, and we basically just move up a level, and we're able to look now across institutional contexts and see not just lists of data sets, but understand the data sets within the context of the projects that created them, the services that maintain them, the teams that are doing them. Then we have a lot more information to guide strategic and intellectual decisions on what it would be worth to look at for semantification, because joining those data sets will make a meaningful integration that makes an even broader cohesion of some subset of data within the overall graph. Whereas we never have to aim for or imagine a total semantic final structure where everything is commensurable and communicates with each other. We just enable the partial integration of data over time according to needs and possibilities and interests. And so if we get to that stage where we have this higher level picture and we can really see strategically why we want to go into a direction, then I think it would better empower the possibility, both from an intellectual research perspective, but also from an institutional perspective, to really invest in the practices and in the infrastructure and in the intellectual work that it takes to make semantic data, because as I tried to illustrate in this diagram here, making semantic data is a multi-person, multi-department, multi-skill operation that requires a lot of interaction with specialists in the content, specialists in semantics, specialists in data transformation, specialists in system setup. So you really want to be able to ground your arguments and your interest in doing such work through being able to contextualize it within this broader picture that could be provided by research infrastructures carrying this contextual picture of what the state of play in research is at any moment. And so then I would argue that, and I'm not arguing it isn't already happening in research infrastructures, I'm just saying that we could deepen this activity. And as we deepen that activity, I think that the ability to not just share knowledge up, but to make it more possible to grab the data that's been shared up and bring it back down for new fundamental research will be strengthened, which should create a virtuous cycle, because then that can be shared back up, and hopefully we create positive feedback loops. So, if you've been following me so far and you're relatively on board with my arguments, you might be asking yourself, well, what are the practical proposals about getting to such a state? And to that, I want to gesture to a few things. So part of this vision comes out of a project that I participated in a number of years ago, a European Union project called the Proximus Project. And its function was to look at the possibility, what it would be to have a research infrastructure of research infrastructures, so a meta level. And what we worked on was an ontology that would not be an ontology to describe every single part of research data in all possible domains, but rather would describe this level of what is the world of the production of research data in the first place, which is the first thing you need to know before you go into any semantics in the first place. So that would be a tool. And I wanted to make a nod to Stefan Henneke of the Max Planck Institute of History of Science, who's been working on implementing the Proximus ontology for providing this diagram, updating the information. And then, of course, it's nice to have an ontology, and it's harder to actually curate and manage data semantically. So I just wanted to point towards the fact that there are any number of open source projects now coming from different geographic and technical backgrounds that offer the possibility to implement semantics from the ground up, and are very obvious tool choices for the possibility of curating and maintaining such knowledge graphs at an institutional level in preparation to share them with research infrastructures. And I wanted to make another nod, and this is not so coherent with the rest of the argument, but I mentioned in the early part of the talk that one part of semantics that is still difficult is the education and the uptake of that by researchers who are generally focused on their research and not on abstract conceptual languages. And so one of the areas of research that semantics I think should be focused on, and I certainly am, is on the documentation of how you make your data semantic, such that in a very explicit and robust way that speaks to different communities, the researchers that are going to use the data, to developers who are going to implement systems to show or allow querying of the data, and conceptual modelers who need to understand what's in the model in the first place. And I think that sort of documentation would be part of the metadata that you would share as you document your process of creating a semantification database A, B, and C. And there's an ongoing project at, at the Swiss Art Research Institute in Switzerland. I have 30 seconds left and I'm very close to the end. You might ask, so is anybody doing that, or are there some good examples of that? Well, Parthenos was doing that, but it was a project, so the project is over. The Max Planck Institute for the History of Science, which I mentioned earlier, aids in that situation of being a local and being a research institute that is responsible for the management of very many data sets coming from high-level scholarship that comes through all the time. And so they just decided to implement this at an institutional level because they want to both make this picture of what data they manage and care for, and also create strategies for semantifying parts of it that are interesting in semantifying. Coming to conclusions, I think semantics can offer a means to guide the creation of research infrastructure, metadata, and integration from provider institutions to research infrastructures. Research institutes and research infrastructures offer a practical place to apply semantics to find areas of common research. And I want to underline that. I'm sorry I'm over by a minute. It's really the necessary condition for doing serious semantic work is for it to have a home where it's going to be maintained. Otherwise, it's just a plaything that will come and disappear and be like any other wonky data. If we can do all that, then researchers can find the benefits from semantics, both to find research that complements theirs, and also to choose directions whereby they can create complementary data sets. So, I hope that you found something interesting in my talk, and I look very much forward to talking about, taking any questions later on in the session.
Thank you very much, George, for your presentation. We will now hear Ricardo Rossio. Ricardo is a web curator at Arquivo.pt, the Portuguese web archive service operated by the Scientific Computing Unit of the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology, where he is in charge of the training program. He is a member of the Content Development Working Group of the International Internet Preservation Consortium, in which he is the lead curator of the street art collection. Ricardo was part of the Rossio infrastructure for digital humanities research team between 2010 and 2022. He holds a master's degree in documentation and information sciences from the DHLab-IHC of Universidade de Lisboa, and he worked both in the art library from the Nicholas Gulbenkian Foundation and at Nova FCSH library. His area of interest is digital preservation, and his presentation has the title Arquivo.pt, a web archive provider for open data for the digital humanities. We'll have a couple more minutes because we won't have the presentation from Maria Manuel Borges, so we can give a couple more minutes to Ricardo. Thank you.
Hello. I want to thank you for the invitation to present Arquivo.pt to digital humanities researchers. This is the title of my presentation. Arquivo.pt as a provider of open data. Let's see if this is true. I want to say that you can access the slides on your phone, on your computer. Be free to do that, and click on all this material I put there, because the aim of this presentation is to invite you to use Arquivo.pt and to make your own evaluation. Is Arquivo.pt useful for your research? If so, how can you use it? So I will put this link, this short link in other slides, so you can immediately click and access it. This is the purpose of my presentation, that you, at the end, can use and evaluate archive.pt. Archive.pt is the Portuguese Web Archive. It is a public preservation service operated by the Foundation for Science and Technology, more specifically by the technological unit, we may say, the FCCN, Scientific Computing Unit. You know, the FCCN provides many services for universities in Portugal, like videocast, internet networks, Zoom meetings, etc. And also archive.pt, a web archive. The facilities are in Lisbon, Avenida do Brasil. It is a very pleasant and pleasant space. This is an open house. We are happy to receive researchers not only from Portugal, but also from any part of Europe, of the world, who wish to use the archive.pt in their research. We will help you in any way we can. We welcome you all. Okay. This is the team, a small team, as you can see. In my presentation, I like to show this slide. The magic of a web archive is actually made of people. But let's stay here. João Gomes is the director of the area, Advanced Services area, but next you can see Daniel Gomes is the founder of Archive.pt since its creation in 2007. While a student at the Faculty of Science of Lisbon, he devoted himself to collecting the web and creating search engine for its PhD. Then we have three young people, engineers, all engineers. Francisco, it's the manager of the system. It takes care of the machines. Pedro is the responsible for collections and the web collections. And Vasco develops the search interface, the site, the web app, etc. Finally, I, myself, as digital curator, I do human verification of the quality of the collections. I participate in the team's technical meetings. I identify lists of sites by themes or by organizations. I make online exhibitions to publicize those sites, open data sets. I am responsible for training. I try to listen to the community, the researchers, and bring all that to my colleagues. There are some data of the volume of data at Archive.pt and the processing capacity employed. I want to highlight just that one. 32 million websites since 1996. Now I want to introduce the issue of the web preservation. The web is ephemeral. It is a problem. We all have gotten used do not rely much on the web content to support our research. For example, in our papers, because of the instability of its contents. It's good, I think. This is the most famous slide of Archive.pt, the slide of the 80%. This slide that justifies the usefulness of Archive.pt. 80% of the web pages disappear or change their content after only 1 year. this is what we do. Archive.pt take care of all pages and can replay it. This is the first page of the European Union. It doesn't have much content because the links behind the link there's nothing, but this is interesting. So how does archive.pt make the web collections? This slide shows in simplified form the 3 phases of web preservation: recording, storing, making available. It also shows somewhat technical terms associated with the process, such as crawler, WARC file format, WebEC, and CDX file. It is necessary to mention these terms because they are important for anyone who wants to use a web archive. This slide briefly presents the criteria that archive.pt uses to gather contents from the web. Sorry for so much content. I think it gives an overview, so I keep it. Arquivo collects Portuguese content, but also in other languages through special collections. There are also limits established, such as the size of contents. So, how you may know, the web is infinite. We can't grow everything. Let's see the search interface. Archive.pt has these features. We can search by URL, text, image, and narrative. Let's see the first example. The URL search. If you put on the archive.pt an address, an URL, you will get a list of versions of that address over time. For example, here you can see the daria.eu. Let's see, for example, let's click, for example, in the 2018 version. And you can see the replay of the page. Let's explore a little bit this. Notice the typical format of a website URL preserved in a web archive. It is a dated site. It has a timestamp. Everywhere at archive.pt or at the Internet Archive is the same. This long link can be used to reference this page. It can be used in collections of all websites, in footnotes or endnotes in scientific papers, for example. Use this format of Another example. This example is a picture in GPG. You can see also the timestamp. Can you see in what day this picture was recorded? In 18 April 2008. Okay, this is the form of the timestamp, a set of numbers. Okay.
I think I was in that meeting.
Huh?
I heard it.
Okay. We have also the text search. The text search returns results found on pages. It is similar to Google, but for the past. And I think we are not so good as Google. At present, Archive.pt is improving text search with Solar, I think. Advanced search allows you to refine, for example, to search on a specific site or in a limited period of time. Internet Archive doesn't have text search. But we have also image search is a rare case among web archives. It is an innovation by Archive.pt for its users. People like to click on images. The image is accompanied by metadata that allows you to know in what context it was published. This is very interesting. We care to give context. Okay? You can click, you can explore. We have also narrative. Narrative or temporal summarization. This is an example of a narrative about European elections, an example, generated by the external service called Tell Me Story, in Portuguese, Conta-me Histórias. It was the winner of the Archive.pt Award 2018 and was integrated in Archive.pt. It uses the Archive.pt API. This slide is an invitation for you to explore the Archive.pt interface. Take a look to the right, options. Some of them can be very useful. For example, the complete page. In this example, you can see the replay of the Daria.iu version in 2009 was like this, incomplete without the style code, the CSS code. But after clicking on the options and complete page buttons, the replay of the Daria.iu version in 2009 improved like this and will be integrated in future views. The community can help Archive.pt to curate the replay, to curate and to improve. Okay, let's go. Or under options, explore the technical details of a page. Click, for example, in a list of expressions available there. For example, click on link to extracted text. Surprise, you will get only the text of a page. Imagine this applied to 1 million of pages. This is very nice for natural language processing or some kind of. A real case of the use of these expressions in technical details. This is the movie tour, a virtual museum about Portuguese tourism. They have created, in collaboration with us, Archive.pt, a collection about websites, and they use a link to screenshot to generate automatically the thumbnail in real time to appear in this digital library. This is Nairon, you know. Only a link put in there this is something that Arquivo allows for integration in other services. That's why I will talk next. Archive.pt, a step forward. Yeah. see this quote. Daniela Major is an historian and early stage researcher in digital humanities at the School of Advanced Study in London. She worked at Archive.pt, at Rossio infrastructure, as an historian who discovered how to use an web archive. She wrote in this blog post, dealing, but you can read. She says greater volume of data. Historians, people of digital humanities don't take care only about one or two cases. They can look forward and process millions of data. A world of possibility for historians, arts, and so. Okay, I let you read this slide. API, Application Programming Interface, is a way for machines to talk to machines. It is an automatic search interface. The technical documentation on the API of Archive.pt is completely available on GitHub at archive.pt/API. A tutorial that is also available for those who want to deepen the subject. This is important for working with the informatics. Probably you don't know about the API, but if you work in a team, you can have an idea what you can do. Data curation. To help community, Archive.pt it's worried with the communication, with giving things that people can use. This is a Google sheet, a spreadsheet. We use this. We are not worried if we use something so simple like this. This is the list of collections preserved by Archive.pt. Is publicly available at archive.pt/collections. It answers the questions researchers ask us. Do you have a list of the contents, of all contents collected since 1996? The answer is yes. You have the list. And this other one. Are the pages you collect during the COVID-19, for example, already available? In this table you can see that. Sure, there is some expressions you don't understand. For example, AWP1 stands for Archive Web Portuguese. Strange, but it was the first collection made by Archive.pt, and it took place in February and March 2008. The collection was made from 154,000 sites and resulted in 1.6 terabytes. It has been indexed. The index file is AWP for 15.cdxj, and it means it is in production. It is publicly accessible in the Archive.pt. You can search. You can see. This is what this means. We need to improve the description of the collections, and the community, when asks something to Archive, we this is what we mean by curation. We need to improve the documentation, to give context. How, in some way, how George said previously in the presentation. Okay. We have also created a new service that allows researchers to download large amount of data without breaking the normal service. We create a bulk for download. I let you the link. You can see after this. So you can you don't need access the WAC files, the files we collected from the internet, and researchers sometimes ask us, can I use your original file, what you have collected? And we tell them, don't worry about this. You don't need to download the files. You just need to download the CDX files, the indexes, because if you have the indexed files, you will able to access the content, the original content. Let's see if I can explain this. For example, if a researcher is looking for all contents from 1996 that are in AWP1 collection, marked on the left side, and wants to analyze the CDXJ files marked on the right, all he wants to do is follow the documentation available at archive.pt/API bulk and download it. If you download it, you can process it. The process requires some technical knowledge which not all researchers have, but considering that they may work in teams or have help from more specialized colleagues, we think it is useful for everyone to know that it is possible to process large amounts of information using the archive.pt API. Here is an example of the kind of information available in a CDXJ file and obtainable through the archive.pt API. It shows the date the page was saved, the URL, and the MIME type if you only want pages or images, for example. You download and after you access one page or 1 million of pages. Okay. 5 minutes enough. Digital corrections. This is other thing we do. These collections of web data are created from this is some lists and have been made by theme such artists, art galleries, sites, Portuguese newspapers, etc. There are also data sets that contain lists of websites that were the object of special collections, such European projects. You can explore this list that we published in this data portal. and we describe the content. It's very easy. I think this is a nice point to start a research. Look at this and see if you get what you want. This is a way to disseminate what we have. Remember, we have 32 million websites. We can curate everything, but we can prepare lists of small data sets that you can use. We do training to help and engage the community. You know, I like this one about the use of the API, but you can require others. We do this for the community. A world of possibility. See, for example, the winners of the Archive.pt award since 2018. Wonderful words about 100 works used Archive.pt in 5 years. Wonderful cases of use. You can explore it. Only 3 are the winners, but this is very interesting. Okay. The Archive.pt Annual Award 2023 is coming, and a support of the President of the Republic of Portugal. Apply. This is the new service for researchers. I want you to be our beta testers. 1 minute, enough, I'm finished. If you use a reference to web content in your paper, HTTP something, probably 1 year after or 2, those links you mentioned in your work will be broken. So use this Archive.pt citation saver. You put there your PDF, or you put there you drop in a text with those links, and Archive.pt save a copy. So in 20 years you will be able to click on your PDF, and you know almost one place in the earth have a copy of that resource you use. See the catalog of services, contact us, keep in touch. Thank you very much. Sorry, my English, but I gave you the presentation. I hope it will be useful for you. Thank you very much.
We can now have a debate. I don't know if some of you has any question for either George or Karen.
I have a question for Takin. Hi.
Hi.
Do you have any plans to integrate the citations saver as a plugin or integrated with Auditório, or
No.
as a plugin for the browsers, for instance? Because a bit like the Wayback Machine for archive.org.
No, as a plugin, no, because a plugin implies that the user on the other side needs to install something, and users don't like to install even. So what we used to do is to create a service only in in the archive.pt side. You put something, we receive the request, and we make all the work. We do the same with the self-stationary. We have a service called
Stabilize the system. We know how to work with the technology, how to integrate data. From that point of view, it's easy. Of course, we have also taken into attention the balance of the consortium, because it is important, because we're not funded, and there is a diplomatic balance inside the consortium that we should preserve. But I think yes, the answer is it's easy. Send them an email and we will talk. At least we can start talking.
I was trying to connect all your presentations exactly.
If there are no more questions, we can close the session.
So, George, thank you. I think we lost you, but then you are back again. We are just finishing. I think you are muted.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to disappear in the middle of the discussion. My internet broke.
No problem. But we are closing. So thank you again for participating in the session. Tomorrow, if you want to, we can send you the link so you can watch the sessions tomorrow if you are interested.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Do you think in the end you will be able to give us permission to share the PowerPoint? You can share with us?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.